created equal. We haven't lived up to it all the time. That's why we need history, like the history we were hearing about earlier, because it reminds us of how we got here and how we have to keep going. You are here because you believe that no matter who you are, where you come from, what you believe, or who you love, you are worthy, you belong, you matter, and you have rights. You have the right to speak your mind. You're here because you don't think people should be arrested for free expression and freedom of conscience. But rights aren't rights when you have to fight for them. And they're not rights if only some people have them. Those are called privileges. And we're here because these aren't privileges. These are American rights, and we're going to defend them for ourselves, but also for the people who fear that they're losing them now. That's you. Those rights have been hard-won. They've been defended across generations by patriots, and we're going to take that word back because it is patriotic to start, and they don't get that word. We're the patriots. That's right. By patriots who believed in the promise of a more perfect union. We're still trying to get there, but that was driven by patriots like you. You know, as I know, that real power doesn't reside in Washington. It doesn't live only with the wealthy and the well-connected. It is with you. It is with us. It is what we all do all together. Some of you, like me, you're a little over drifty 50. You've been through some of this before in the 60s. You remember that? Yeah? Yeah, we're going to do that again, right? Because we didn't finish. As the abolitionist, Theodore Parker once said, "The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice." You've heard those words someplace else. And I think many of us remember them because Dr. Martin Luther King picked them up and he carried them forward, using them to light the way through some of our darkest days. And if you were around then, you know what those days were and you know how dark they were. But he bent that arc with courage, nonviolence, and the belief that we could be better than we are. And he used the words of someone else. He stood on the shoulders of those who came before him, just as we are going to stand on his shoulders, and we're going to keep this work going. But as Dr. King warned, we have let the American dream slip away for far too many of us. That dream that every person, regardless of who they were, regardless of circumstance, that should have a fair chance to thrive. That's why your presence here matters. That's why your presence is an act of patriotism. You are a part of a long line of people who have fought for someone greater and something greater than themselves. We've learned from the civil rights movement. We've learned from the women's rights movement. We've learned from the gay rights movement and the fight for gay rights. We've learned from youth who have led us on climate and anti-racism and gun safety. We've learned from workers fighting for fair wages and from those demanding access to health care and housing. And the most important lesson is this: real change comes from you. It does not come from Washington. And we're not going to wait for someone in Washington to come and save us, because we're going to make the change we need. Get on it, New Hampshire. You got to catch up to Vermont here. I'm kidding. We love you too. Let me tell you a story. And again, I'm so glad, Kendra, you led. But I want to tell you a story about that truth. Not so long ago, there was a period before the Americans with Disabilities Act when people who used wheelchairs or people who broke their foot doing laundry faced barriers almost everywhere they went. They couldn't enter libraries or classes or jobs that they wanted to take because they couldn't get into the building, right? They picked their courses based on what floor they were on. They had to choose what to do based on what they could reach. That's not okay. Think of the squandered talent. Think of the capacity we lost because we were too careless to make sure everybody could participate and belong. So one night, just a few people, we think we're the few, but we're the many, just a few people in Berkeley took matters into their own hands. Under the cover of darkness, They rolled out in their wheelchairs, and they poured a concrete curb ramp onto a sidewalk. Right? You know those ramps? Think about that. Somebody's just said, hell no, we're going to make it possible to get on that curb, and they just did it. And they called it the slab heard round the world. You can have fun while you do this. It doesn't have to be dark and desperate. You can have some fun and change the world through small actions. It was one small act, but it was revolutionary because it said we belong and we deserve access. And we aren't going to wait for somebody else to give us dignity. We're going to get it. We're going to get it, right? That movement faced resistance. At first, people kept saying the problem was disability. If you didn't have a disability, you'd be able to get in. You've heard that before, and you've heard it about lots of people. But the real problem was the same problem we're struggling with now. It was our collective failure to design a world where everybody could bring their best game. And when those curb cuts, and good luck trying to walk around and not see them, give credit to those people in Berkeley. Because when those curb cuts became law, when we said our public spaces were truly public, when we actually were willing to spend and act to make public goods public and accessible, something really beautiful happened. We discovered they didn't just help people in wheelchairs. They helped parents with strollers. They helped delivery workers with carts. These weren't special privileges or special rights. These were human privileges and human rights. Travelers with luggage, kids on bikes, seniors who couldn't climb curbs, careless state representatives who fall down the stairs when doing their laundry. All of a sudden, we had curb cuts. And it turns out that if you watch, 9 out of 10 people actually cut to that curb cut when they're trying to get up on the curb. In fact, most of us like it. We just didn't know it until a bunch of activists in Berkeley threw some concrete down. Now we know. And that, friends, that is the metaphor for the work ahead of us. When we fight for equity, when we fight for justice, when we fight for full participation for everybody, not the few, we all benefit. We are all better off. When we lift up those we've chosen to leave behind, we don't fall behind. We move forward together. Right now, that is the vision. We are going to move forward together. Right now, oh my gosh, well, you got to move in closer. We're friends. Come on, people. Thank you. I need a friend. But right now, that vision is under threat. There are cuts on the table, as other people have said. Some of them have happened. Some of them are still coming. And all we're doing in the legislature is trying to figure out where it's coming from and how we anticipate to keep people safe. These cuts are potentially devastating. Cuts to the Administration for Community Living would eliminate essential programs like Meals on Wheels that feed our seniors and independent living centers, which are lifelines for people who are aging and people with disabilities. Medicaid, that helps millions of people access health care, especially those with disabilities, and it could be gutted. These cuts would force cuts in your school budgets. They would cut people who need nursing care out of nursing homes. These cuts would force more people into expensive hospital care instead of more accessible community-based care, costing all of us. And it would strip away the ability of people to live independently and with dignity. These aren't just policy decisions. When we allow this to happen, these are barriers. These are curbs that we are throwing up in front of people who want to be part of our communities and want to bring their best game. It's the modern equivalent of building a curb that says you don't belong here. And hell no, we're not going to do that. We're going to fight back. One of my favorite women said, when we create the circumstances that allow those who've been left behind to participate and contribute fully, everybody wins. If you take one thing away today from all the amazing people who've spoken, it's that everybody matters, and when we take care of everybody, we are all stronger. There is no better future that doesn't involve everyone. This is about equity. This is about democracy. It is about who we are, and it is about who we want to be. Equity is not zero-sum. When we invest where help is needed most, we don't take away from other people. We create better, stronger communities for everyone. When our most vulnerable neighbors are protected, I was talking to someone who was telling me about an elderly man with dementia who had lost his home because he couldn't manage his finances. If we lose those federal funds for housing, what are we going to do to keep him housing? Because that could be your family member. We are going to show up for the people who need help because that's what neighbors do. Right now, we all need to start with a question. Go home and ask yourself, what am I going to do to make sure that shared future where all means all is my future? Because it isn't going to happen if you're waiting for someone else. It's going to happen because you stand up and you make it happen. This work is hard. This work is hard. That's why Martin Luther King kept saying over and over, the arc bends towards justice, but it does take a long time. But here's the truth. You don't have to do it alone. We're a team. We are a team. As a team, nobody carries everything. You just carry what you can. You carry it where you can and when you can. And you trust that that person standing next to you in this audience, they're going to do the same thing. And we're going to get there together because we're trusting each other to do that work. So ask yourself, who here believes we need representative history taught in our schools? Because if you don't know where you came from, you sure as heck don't know where you're going. Raise your hand. All right, there are a lot of you. I like that. I wore my red for Ed because I knew you'd like that. Who here believes in the rule of law and feels you shouldn't just be able to kidnap someone because they speak their mind and throw them in jail? All right, that's us. Who believes in freedom of conscience and thinks that when you pay your school taxes in Vermont, you shouldn't have to fund a school that requires a faith pledge to enroll, will fire teachers if they're gay, and insists that people be taught that if you're gay and lesbian, you have to practice bestiality and incest? Why are we doing that with our public school dollars? Doesn't matter. It doesn't make sense. We gotta say no. Who wants to protect public health? Because you know that our health is science. And when we do things like, well, I won't even go, because I got those signs right on. We want to protect that stuff. Who knows that if we don't talk about climate, even if that guy doesn't want to talk about climate, we won't have a future, and we are robbing our kids of their future. Right? Look at those hands. If you raised your hand, and I could go on for 4 hours and Kendra would have to pull me off the stage, but if you raised your hand to even one of those, just one of those, fantastic, fantastic, because that's your piece. Take that piece, take that thing you raised your hand for, that's your work. Do your part and trust on all the other amazing people who are raising their hands to do their part, and we're going to get where we need to go. You don't have to win every battle. I lose all the time in the legislature. I lost today. I'll tell you about that if you want to go over there. You just have to show up and not give up. And if you keep going, you will make the difference we need. Please remember to rest. This is a marathon, not a sprint. It's okay to stop and have ice cream. I do chocolate. Do what you need to do, because you got to show up tomorrow too. It's not a one-time thing. For me, the best part of the day is looking at these signs. I'm really sorry you don't get to see them. And I'm just going to say it again, don't put your hope in Washington right now. We're going to have to lead from the bottom up. And also, this isn't just about Washington. This is about us. I'm going to say it again. In Vermont, even before federal health care cuts, we're in a healthcare crisis in the state. Premiums are 4 times higher for a basic market plan in Vermont than in New Hampshire. I just talked to someone who went into the hospital for a gallbladder test. that she thought was going to be about $700, and she walked out with a $6,000 bill. That is 2 months of her earnings. That is wrong, right? If you can't pay your bills and you're working full-time, there's something really broken about our system. We have to do that. That's our job, because when we don't fix that, we make people angry, and when people are angry, they do things that don't make sense. So we need to deal that. We need to own that, and we need to fix that. Demand better. We can't allow people to die of preventable illness and rack up debt. We have to fix that. And in New Hampshire, I got words for you too. Your public education system is being gutted through vouchers right now. You're taking public, and you know who's benefiting? Amazon. Don't let that happen. If you lose your public schools, you are losing one of the most powerful democracy-building institutions we have. Because vouchers don't, let's hear it, come on. Woo! If you lose your public schools, you lose several things. You lose the schools that our most vulnerable children depend on. Because if you have a disability, if you're an economically disadvantaged kid whose parent can't pay up the fees, you need good public schools. And like many of you, we are here today because we had that opportunity, we had that access. So if a school isn't saying, all are welcome, and you gotta pay, you can come here without paying more, they should not be considered public. Where in that fractured system will children learn to live in democracy if you don't have schools? If you want to know where the future is, look at your child care system. We have no access to child care in some parts of both of our states, and it's incredibly expensive. It's more expensive to put a kid in child care than it is to put them in college. That's because we've broken that system. We're not going to do that. We're going to fix that too. If we lose the public in public education, we lose more than classrooms. We lose the soul of our shared society. But here's the thing. Look at you. There are more of us. There are more of us willing to show up right now. And every day, more people who believe in equity, dignity, and justice, including people who might surprise you, are showing up and saying they believe in us and our communities. You don't have to fight every fight. Don't fight every fight. Just pick one and trust your neighbors to pick others. Our diversity is our strength, but our unity is our power. And we have power. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. So go home tonight, find your neighbors, pick what you're going to work on, find your team, and let's get to work, because we're going to take back our country, because we're patriots, and we know there is nothing more important than making sure that we are a country where everybody has equal opportunity to succeed. Thank you so much for being here.